Brought to you by great listeners just like yourselves. Stop by our Patreon page. It's www.patreon.com/baseball talk. And you can sponsor our podcast and be a part of the show. And hello, everyone, and welcome aboard to the Baseball Talk Radio Show. It's the live podcast where we're talking all about baseball. How you doing, Mr. Gary Mack?
I'm doing very well, Mr. Baxter, and it's great to talk to you again about our favorite sport, baseball.
Yes, it is. Hard to believe how fast the weeks start flying by once the season starts. And I just wanted to start off by thanking our Patreon viewer that has sponsored us, David out there. David, thanks again. And we invite everybody to stop by and give us a try there on patreon.com.
Thanks, David, and we'll be willing to shout out to everybody that joins up at patreon.com/baseball talk, just like Rich just did. So go there and sign up and keep us going strong.
Yep. And Gary, before the show started, we were talking a little bit about our special weekend edition here. It's the Easter edition, and Easter weekend is already here, and already we've got a lot to talk about the baseball world.
It certainly we do, Rich, and almost 2 weeks in already. I know it doesn't sound like, and I know it's very, very early, but there are some big surprises in baseball so far, and whether it lasts, who knows? But boy, you take a look at the National League Central, and it's not the Cubbies in first place, as everybody predicted. It's the Cincinnati Reds, and everybody thought the Reds would be, whoa, forget it. They were going to finish, they were going to lose 162 games. But lo and behold, they have some young pitchers, and like I said earlier, the league will probably catch up to them sooner or later. But you never know with young pitchers. They just get on a roll, and everything's going right. And maybe they're a little seasoned, they know how to pitch, and we'll have to watch that. But they're doing great. National League West, everybody picked the Dodgers, the Giants. Dodgers are playing okay. Giants are stinking up the joint. But the two teams up on the top right now, early in the season again, is the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies. And you couldn't find anybody that would have picked those two before the season started. So the year is off to a booming start. We've already had extra inning games, and the flags going up at the World Championship flag going up at Wrigley Field, and just an amazing year. And we're only 2 weeks in, not even 2 weeks in yet, Rich.
Yeah, it's just the beginnings of the baseball season. And we even had a brand new stadium. First game was tonight, opening night in Atlanta with the SunTrust Park. Another podcast friend of ours is down there opening up that stadium. Baseball PhD, the Baseball PhD podcast, all went down there to open the stadium. And another one, Gary, Atlanta Baseball Talk, guys that we're friendly with from the baseballtalkradio.com. They're all down there for tonight's opening. And, I've heard nothing but good things about that stadium.
It looks like a very nice stadium. I was following it when they were doing the construction because, they had a live cam feed on it during the construction. And it looks like a really, really nice stadium. It's like anything new. They're going to have some bugs to work out, the whole area. As we discussed in the past now, the trend seems to be building around these stadiums like a small city almost. And there's a few things done, but not everything's done yet. But it's going to become a hub. I know one problem they were talking about, Atlanta Baseball Talk mentioned on my show, Mets Musings, is that the mass transportation may be an issue out there. So Um, I don't know whether it's in the plans for the future to extend the line out there or whatever, but it would certainly be something to look into and go for the capital dollars because that would really allow the people of Atlanta to get out there. And I know one of the guys on Atlanta Baseball Talk wasn't too happy about the new stadium because he actually lived a couple of blocks from the old one, so he could walk down to the ball game. And so the new stadium, he's not too crazy about because he's got that nice, easy jaunt if he wants to catch a game. But it looks like a beautiful stadium, state of the art, going to be terrific. Supposed to have the best Wi-Fi in baseball. Just going to be fascinating, and good luck to the Braves with the new stadium.
Yes, indeed. It's a little bit north of the Atlanta metropolitan area. And as was said, there's no real mass transportation there. And a lot of the fans have to rely on mass transportation to get to games. I know in cities like where you're from, New York, Philadelphia, all the major metropolitan areas basically have good transportation to bring the public in. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that and see what happens. I'm sure they'll make adjustments if needed up there. But anyway, it's a great time for Atlanta, great time to welcome a new stadium. And it's always sad to see an old stadium go as well. I know at Atlanta Baseball Talk, he was very upset at the Braves losing and leaving Turner Field because that had a history before it became a baseball stadium. It was an Olympic stadium. So, there's always a part of fans that seem to go away as well when an old stadium closes. I remember when Philadelphia's Veterans Stadium closed. I was very sad. Just hung on to it. Went to a couple games towards the end there, the closing ceremonies they called it, and I'm sure you probably miss Shea as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a remembrance of our youth, Rich. You know, we remember going as kids to the older ballparks, and when they close, like you said, it is sad. Uh, Even though we know that the newer ballparks are so much nicer and have more amenities and whatnot, it's still something about the old park that we were kids in, and maybe that's what it's more of. That we grew up at that ballpark, and now it's like our youth is gone completely again. But time marches on, and we want a lot out of our ballparks nowadays, and um, they have to keep up with the times.
Yes, they do. And another thing I've noticed is how fast time flies once the new ballpark opens. People are talking about, oh, it's been open for 10 years already. It's hard to believe some of these times that fly by. But yeah, the stadiums are like a measurement of time. And uh, getting back to Veterans Stadium, it seemed like you were a mile away from the field when you were in the first level, even sometimes now. With the newer stadiums, they build them with in mind that, people are closer to the action. There are better views for the most part in all parts of the stadiums in most instances. And yeah, like you said, it's a furtherance of baseball and a good thing to keep progressing.
Well, I was in Veteran Stadium. I was in a couple of the cookie cutters. Of course, Shea Stadium, which was a cookie cutter of Veteran Stadium, except they never finished it. They didn't enclose Shea Stadium like they did Veteran Stadium. And I was in Three Rivers, which was almost the same exact stadium in Pittsburgh, all based on that same idea and style and design. And yeah, it did seem. I remember sitting out in left field for a game against the Pirates. I think it was the Expos and the Pirates. And man, it felt like you were 100 miles away from it. And now they try to they build them so they've got lesser seats, and you can get a little closer to the action. And it's Like I said, I went to the second game of the season. Boy, the seats were terrific. I was high up, but yet I felt like I wasn't, a mile and a half away from the action.
Yes, indeed. And of course, those baseball smells that they've come out with the little barbecue areas, and they just know how to attract fans like us that are looking for the nice ballpark fare, so to speak.
Yeah, and the problem with the food courts that they have, Rich, is you don't know where to turn first. You've got all these smells coming at you, and you're like, "Oh my God, I feel like that." Oh, but what's that? I feel like that now. So, but yeah, they're very successful with that. Even though the prices are high, I don't think they're hurting for business because you see lineups everywhere you go. So they do a good job with that, and I think you're right. It's the smells that get you.
Yep. Well, you were talking a little bit about the National League Central, some surprises there. How about the American League East with the Baltimore Orioles leading the way, 6-2 on the year so far, 4-1 at home, and that's a bit of a surprise. I think we all picked the Boston Red Sox or the Yankees to do well, and all of a sudden the Orioles have jumped out of the box there in American League East. And over in the Central Division, the Twins and the Tigers, I don't think anybody could have thought of those two teams.
And especially the Tigers, Rich. I mean the Twins. Excuse me. After the year they had last year, and everybody said Mollet was going to get fired and all of that, and lo and behold, he's got these guys tied for first place. And yeah, going back to the East for a second, I picked Toronto, and they're 1-8. So don't listen to anything I say when I'm prognosticating teams because I don't seem to have any luck at all. 1-8 for Toronto. What's going on there? I mean, haven't gotten to see any of their games yet, but wow, they must be not getting any pitching at all, and it's hard to believe because they got that Stroman and they got some other young guys there, and 1-8. That's just incredible.
Yeah, I heard Josh Donaldson got injured the other day running to a base, came up a little lame, got taken out of the game. So, yeah, the Jays starting off a little slow, 1-8. We'll see if they can turn it around. The Houston Astros out in the AL West getting a good start. They're tied with the Los Angeles Angels. And I keep saying this every year, Gary, but if the Angels don't do it this year, uh, I'm convinced that what they're doing is not right out there.
Yeah, and I think it was an article last week that you were talking about, and they had the odds of managers getting fired. And Mike Scioscia was on the top of the list there, or the second on the list, and here he's got the team at 6-4. And again, it is very early in the season, but I think I picked Texas, and they're 4-5, and look at Seattle's 2-8, but we were not. Other people picked Seattle, some of the experts, to win that division, so I don't feel too bad there. But 2-8 for Seattle, they're off to a horrendous start. So uh, it's just that's the beauty of this game, Rich. You just can't figure it out.
That's for sure. And we don't even have to talk about your New York Mets. Got off to a great start this year so far. We can only hope that that keeps going.
Well, yes, and thankfully they got healthy and started to hit in Philadelphia. Unfortunately for your team, but that trip to Philly was like medicine for them because they were able to sweep Philadelphia and played a real tough game last night, 16 innings with Miami, and won it in the 16th. Travis D'Arnaud hit a home run. And so that was a wild game. That was a slugfest in the beginning, and then it was like I don't know how many innings of 9, 8 innings of shutout ball. So go figure. They score 8 runs and then nothing from the seventh inning on. So until the 16th. So um, yeah, it's but that's kind of shaping up to what we thought. It's going to be Washington and the Mets fighting in the NL East, and maybe Miami might give them a little bit of a run. And while I got you here, what's up with Velasquez? Because he looked like he didn't have good stuff at all the other night.
Yeah, interestingly enough, rather, during the game, I was watching the Philadelphia feed on the television broadcast, and John Kruk, who has joined the Phillies broadcast booth this year, was commenting on how Velasquez was missing his marks. Every time the catcher was calling for the ball inside, he would throw it outside, and vice versa. Wherever the catcher wanted the ball, he wasn't getting it there. And that was his main problem. And, the batters made him pay for it the other night, and he had a bad start. I guess that's where you could chalk it up to. Maybe he's not as sharp as you think he would be early on in the season, following through from spring training. But as they start getting more starts, hopefully they'll improve. The whole Phillies staff has been suspect on the pitching mound, even the relief pitchers. So. Uh, like we said in a couple shows ago, it's going to be a long season for the Phillies.
Well, but they do have some hitters there, and there is something to look forward to if they can get some pitching and put it together. And speaking of hitting, boy, that Miami team can hit. They've got plenty of hitters on that team, and but they've got a little suspect in the pitching as well. So no, the team is perfect. The Mets can go up and down, and we'll see what happens once they take on Washington. And even Washington struggled. I mean, they're 6-4, so you can't say they're struggling, but they weren't. They're not up to the same start that they had last year. So it should be an interesting dogfight in the East, and all the I think all of the divisions are gonna be interesting to watch throughout the season.
Yes, indeed. Well, the power rankings came out last week for the first week of the season, and I suspect we might see some shuffling of the cards with the power rankings as far as ESPN was looking at them. And they generally do a column each week and rank all the teams per week. No doubt the Cubs were at first last week, the Cleveland Indians in second, the Washington Nationals third place, Baltimore Orioles in fourth, Houston Astros in fifth, and the Boston Red Sox rounded out the top six in those power rankings. So I suspect within the next couple days when they release their next one, we'll see a little shuffling in that.
Oh, without a doubt, that's going to be moving up and down all year. So uh, something to keep an eye on.
Yes, indeed. Well, something else we're keeping an eye on is a great trip you're about to embark on. And why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to the Baseball Hall of Fame in a couple of weeks, and going to visit there. I want to go see the gallery, of course, of the plaques, and got to look up the Tom Seaver and the Mike Piazza plaque there, and maybe we'll put some pictures up too, Rich. And we might have a little bit of a surprise there. I'm going to do an interview with the director of communications of the Hall of Fame. So we'll be bringing that to you, and um, hopefully we'll try to do some video.
It'd
uh,
be great.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't been there since I was a kid, and I remember, it's really completely changed as I see online and when I was there. And so I'm really kind of looking forward to it. I want to see Babe Ruth's locker again. That was an intriguing thing as a kid. seeing the actual locker and the uniform hanging there of the great Babe Ruth. So that's the kind of stuff. Rich, we love the history of the game, so it's cool to see all that the old gloves that these guys used to wear and stuff, and unbelievable. And kids should go there. Encourage the parents that if your kid loves baseball, take them to the Hall of Fame. There's so much stuff there, and it's just and I guess they still have the women's league, that part of the Hall of Fame, and I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. And yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, there's so much to see and do, uh, take take in, so to speak. And as you said, pick out your favorite players in the gallery there. Go try to find the plaques. And the good thing is they're arranged by years, so you can pick out certain years and things like that, and check them out as to when they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And yeah, it's just a great trip with a nice little small town feel to the place. It's not like going to the big city or anything. It's definitely a small town feel there in Cooperstown.
It certainly is, and as I said, they've even gotten it more tuned to baseball since the last time I was there. So it's going to be cool. I hope I can check out some of the sites around. Like there's a Cooperstown Bat Company. Maybe I'll be able to go there and remember a store, couple of on Main Street or whatever they call the main street there, and I have no idea what the name of it was, but all I remember about this store is that when you walked in, they actually had all of the caps for sale. Now, of course, as a kid, I didn't have that kind of money, and it was probably only like 10 or 12 bucks for a cap. But my parents were going to pay $10 for a cap. That was crazy. But they had all the official caps. And the other thing that they had a rack on the wall. And I mean, they had other stuff, but this is what I remember that stuck with me. They had all the different yearbooks from different teams. So, and I had never seen a Detroit Tiger yearbook or a Red Sox yearbook, or, I thought the Yankees at the time, because I don't even think the Mets were in existence when we went. I may be wrong, but I'm trying to think, but it was, we used to the Yankees yearbook or the Mets yearbook. We didn't know anybody else had yearbooks. And here were all of these teams' yearbooks. And it was like, I was like enthralled with just looking at this and seeing this. And then all the hats, the professional hats. And they had a little old lady that would actually, I think, because in those days they were leather sweatbands. And this woman would actually size it perfectly to your head.
Wow.
And a number of years later, my buddy went up there and went, and the store was still there, and that lady was still there sizing it. And he bought a hat and had it sized because he was like in between sizes.
Hmm.
Now they've got him down better. In those days, it was an art like, and so he was a little bit in between size, and she fit that thing perfectly to his head. So um, she's that was got to be 25 years ago, so she's probably long gone by now. But I'm looking. I think there is a couple of stores that have that kind of stuff in it, so I want to see what's there.
Sounds like a fun time indeed up there at Cooperstown. And just yesterday, across the wire came this story. I was very surprised to see it. The Chicago Cubs, of course, the World Series champs last year. There's a story out there saying that they have a lot of coverage on their World Series wins, but what they don't have is a presence in the Hall of Fame at Cooperstown. Apparently, after the game, um, Cubs memorabilia was very in short supply. Usually, the Hall of Fame is right there and has seven or eight or 10 or a dozen things that they can lay claim to right away and bring back to the Hall. Didn't happen this time with the Chicago Cubs win. And there was a request made a few weeks ago. And so far, nothing has been received, according to the Hall of Fame. Um, Amazing that that would happen. But yeah, they usually get a great display of items on display, like for now when the season starts on last year's World Series winner. So hopefully, by the time you get there, Gary, that they'll have a few things to put on display.
Oh, yeah, well, we have to hope for that, or if not, I'll ask them why not. Why do they think? Could be, they are redoing Wrigley Field. Could be that they took a lot of the stuff for there. Kind of a shame, though, because that is the home of baseball.
Yes, it is a great place indeed. Take a trip and check it out. So I'm looking forward to your interview there with the Baseball Hall of Fame and can't wait for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a little break in the action here on the program. We'll take a small commercial break and we'll come back and talk some more baseball on the Baseball Talk Radio Show with Rich and Gary.
Sponsor an ad on the Phillies Talk podcast.
And that's the wrong commercial. I think it's this one here. Take two. We want to thank all of our listeners for listening to the Baseball Talk Radio Show. To get in contact with us is easy. You can reach me at rich@baseballtalkradio.com, or you can reach Gary at gary@baseballtalkradio.com. You can send us an email or a voicemail, and we'd be glad to get it on the program. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Go to our website, mlbthisweek.com, and you can find the links to those areas. On Twitter, we're at MLB This Week. So give us a follow there, and you'll get the latest updates and news from this podcast on when we're doing our shows and our opinions in the world of baseball.
And Rich, I'd like to tell the people that they can hear this show as well as your show, Phillies Talk, and my show, Mets Musings, on the baseballtalkradio.com website. And you can listen to over 30 podcasts about baseball, the game. A lot of them cover individual teams, and but everything's covered there. There's a fantasy sports, a fantasy baseball site, the Japanese baseball site, the Baseball PhD, who's an interesting character. He's there, and he's on there, and just everything you want about baseball is at baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows.
Yes, sir, Gary. Just check it out, baseballtalkradio.com. More shows being added every day, so check it out, baseballtalkradio.com. We're back talking baseball live here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. And Gary, when we went into the break, I started thinking about some stats this year, and I'm wondering, have you seen that home run stat now, where they're showing you how fast it came off the bat, the degree that the ball took, and all that jazz?
Yeah, what are they calling it? The velocity something or other. I guess it's interesting. If you're watching at home, I guess it's interesting. It's something to keep you busy. And but how necessary it is, and does it really mean anything? Exit velocity, that's it. Does it really mean anything? I don't know.
Probably not. It comes over Twitter sometimes, and I'll take a look at it. Oh, 120 miles an hour, about 68 degrees. Yeah, that's about average. I'm starting to get into. I'm sad to say I'm starting to look at the graphics that come over Twitter when somebody hits a home run, and I'm that wasn't a very high home run, because they give you the feet off of the ground that the ball was hit, the highest point, and the sort of like the trajectory of the ball. And I gotta admit, I'm a little intrigued by it after I thought I wouldn't like it, but it's pretty neat.
Well, that's okay. A little intrigueness. That's fine.
So you had something you wanted to bring up as well with some of the rules on baseball so far that you've noticed.
Well, Rich, we've been talking. Baseball's been talking about pace of play the last year and a half or so. And interesting, Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports wrote an article and is talking about that. It's available, as I said, at Yahoo Sports. So if you want to check it out, but some fascinating things that came out of it was that um, it's a completely different feeling at the ballpark than there is at home. In other words, he's pushing really for pitch clock, and he says that's really the only way to do it because of the money that TV has and everything. You can't really do much else, but you can put in a pitch clock. But he doesn't think the players will go for it. But MLB's been doing a survey, and what they found is that people at the ballpark actually like the longer games because gives them more quality time to spend with friends and family at the games. And there's nothing like going and staying online, and we were talking about the food earlier, and then miss 2 innings or something because it's going so fast, 1, 2, 3. So there's that aspect of it. But yet, if you watch on TV, you're checking out when it starts languishing and this pitching changes and you're going on your commercial break to something else. So a different kind of thing, and this is what his article is basically based on, but mostly it's about the pitch clock and how he thinks it's really the solution. And I don't know if I like the idea. I I don't know. It's a tough one. I hate to mess around with the game, but you kind of understand why they would want to do to make it a little quicker. But again, if you're at the game and paying 50, $75 a ticket or something, you don't want to go home in an hour and a half. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, it is a different feeling, and I experienced that a little bit last year. I'll be going soon this year, so I'll be interested to see what the difference is. But basically, like you said, I had the impression that you were just, part of the scenery now at the stadium, sitting there. They run the replays, and for the most part, now most stadiums are running the replays. In the beginning, this was never done because they didn't want the fans to get on the umpires and things like that. Prior to replay, close plays were never really replayed in stadiums. So now you've got a total different way where they're playing everything on the screens for anybody to see. So you've had a big turnaround in the way everything has been done in baseball. And it is a totally different feel to the game. And I'm not so sure it's a great thing for the baseball fan at the stadium.
Yeah, because then you run, like I said, you run into the risk that the games are going to be so quick, and you're just going to get settled in your seat, and living when we do, there are traffic, and sometimes if you work and yeah, I'm just crazy enough, I'll take a quarter a day off of work just to get there early. But some people come later, and they might get there first pitch, they might get there in the second inning due to traffic or whatever. And before you know it, it's the ninth inning, and you're going home. If they speed up the game like they want to, and I feel like you're gypped a little bit that way. So, um, I don't, and yet I admit if I'm at home watching a game and they're making a pitch and change, I'll flip over to another channel to see something else. But you know yourself, when you watch your local team on television, they run these same damn commercials over and over and over again. So you've already seen them 14 times already in the game. Do I want to see them another time? Give me a new commercial at least. But so I'll switch over, but I'll switch back when I think the game's back on. I guess what it's coming down to. People aren't watching the commercials, and that's what they're paying billions of dollars for.
Yeah, and another trick I used to use when I'd go to the stadium is I'd have to bring my radio with me. I'd have to hear a broadcast of the game as well, because when I'm sitting back there and I really didn't know what happened, I didn't get a good view of the play. I'm listening to it. Oh, he didn't touch the bag, or whatever happens to be the play. But I think with certain things, especially replay, it sort of takes the average fan that's just viewing the game out of the game a little bit more, and you you suddenly find yourself with a lot of time on your hands while you're looking at two umps with headphones on, similar to ones we have on.
Well, yeah, that's the big thing when you're at the ballpark, and the other thing which we discussed last week is the new intentional walk thing, which is a little disconcerting when you're at the ballpark, and if you don't see him make the signal, and all of a sudden the guy's walking down the first, and you go, what happened? How did he get? We didn't even throw a pitch to this guy. So those are the two things really when you're at the ballpark. But a lot of people still do bring their radios and stuff, and that's okay. But technology, Rich. Now you can bring, if your team streams, you could actually bring your phone and watch the game on television as you're sitting in the stands. I tried it out because the Mets are now streaming their games, the local games on the internet, and and I checked it out, and it did work at the stadium. So I didn't keep it on for long, but I had to see whether or not it would work, and it did.
Very cool. Well, just an update to a show or a portion of the show we did a few shows ago. Wanted to let our listeners know that Pete Rose will indeed be honored at the Phillies Wall of Fame ceremonies this year. I know we talked a little bit about it, and the Phillies were thinking about honoring him. They got the approval from MLB, and then they went ahead and announced it in the last week. The date is August 12th. So if you're a big Pete Rose fan and you want to see him at the stadium, you can go to Philadelphia and watch him be inducted into the Wall of Fame. Not quite the Hall of Fame, Gary, but Phillies Wall of Fame.
Oh, well, you know what? I think that's a great honor as well. Team that you played for to honor you in that way, I think that's fantastic. And in some ways, it could mean more almost than some of the other Hall of Fames, because those you played for that team, and that's what you meant to them, and they think that highly of you. So, congratulations for him on that.
That's for sure. And an update to an earlier story from you with your Blue Jays, Gary. Josh Donaldson indeed went to the 10-day disabled list, and a guy that started spring training with the Phillies is going to be taking his place. Chris Coughlin, a guy that the Phillies waived towards the last week of spring training, going to be playing for the Blue Jays, going to be starting now. So he didn't take long to find himself a starting job, I got to say.
Oh, good for him. Former Marlin too, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, former Marlin, and of course the Cubs last year. He was with the World Series team Cubs. And one of my favorite players over the past few years. I've always admired Coughlin, although he never became the big superstar that a lot of people thought he would become. He's just been a good kind of utility guy for most of his career.
No, good for him. He gets another shot, and hopefully it'll stick.
That's for sure. Well, we hope everyone enjoyed tonight's program. And as Gary said, he's going to have a great interview coming up with the Baseball Hall of Fame in the next couple of weeks for you. And we're also going to be interviewing a great author and we're going to have a show on Leo DeRocher, a little departure from our normal format of the show, but we hope you enjoy our special look at Leo DeRocher coming up in just a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Rich. The book was terrific, and the author has been around the game a long time, so it should be really great getting his take and his take on Leo the Lip.
Yeah, he had a couple nicknames there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
Can't say on a family show.
It depends when you started watching baseball, but I remember the older version of Leo DeRocher, like when I was younger and growing up, he was an old guy, but it's interesting to go back and see how his career started and, different players that he played with. So, great history of the game. Of course, on Saturday, April 15th is Jackie Robinson Day. So we get some more history infused into the game. And that's one of the most confusing days for me as a baseball fan, Gary, because everybody's wearing the same number.
I was just thinking the same thing, Rich. How confusing that is. Who hit the home run number 42? They all got 42 on.
It's almost like who's on first? 42. I know 42's on first.
And if I can just go back to your point about Leo DeRocher, you're 100% correct. I remember him as the older one, and I remember him from the early 60s from being on television with Mr. Ed and Munsters. I think he was on in uniform, and Donna Reed show, I believe, and he was all over the place. And my mother told me about, when I read about the New York Giants and the Bobby Thompson homer, and he was the manager and running out and everything. And my mother says, yeah, that's the same guy. That was Leo DeRocher. And then to find out, hopefully the newer fan has seen the movie 42 and will equate him to being the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers. So he was suspended the year that Jackie Robinson came up. He was the manager there as well, and then committed the cardinal sin in the world by going to the hated New York Giants to be the manager there. So it should be interesting. He had quite a lustrous. Think about this, Rich. He was around the game so long, but he saw such people and played with or coached people. Babe Ruth we're talking about, Lou Gehrig, Pepper Martin, the Gas House Gang in St. Louis, Sandy Koufax, Donald Drysdale.
Mike Cobb, I think.
Just incredible, the wealth of knowledge that this guy had, and he knew how to bet too. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that you picked up on that because I had the same feeling this past week when I was reading a lot more. I was like, wow, what a lucky guy he was. He started his career playing with these legends of the game and went right on through the 50s into the 60s into the game, and had this tie in with Hollywood and some aspects. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that in the next couple weeks. A special on Leo DeRocher.
It's going to be fun.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this broadcast, the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're looking forward to the next one, and you have a great week, Gary.
And same to you, Rich, and we'll see you all again next week right here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show.